This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real-life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments. Parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Garrity and Jill Tyrone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of our Dance Studio 411 podcast. Our special guest today is Tricia Gomez, and we are talking about playing to a new audience and all the things that we're facing as dance studio owners and teachers, especially in this time of change. So welcome, Tricia. We're so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Good. Well, you and I were talking, you've been so generous with our members doing a masterclass recently. And of course, we're used to seeing. I'm excited today because you're going to talk about, looking for those hidden opportunities to enrich your staff, because that's what we want to do. We want to help them. And then finding that untapped population of new students and creating those new virtual and in-person and blended programming that is suitable for all levels and abilities. And I think that if there was ever a time for our listeners to understand how much all of us are kind of resetting, reevaluating, and putting a new fresh set of eyes on it, it's now. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I was looking back at my whole process since like the start of all this until now. And what I initially did was I went into a quiet period. And like for a good month, I was quiet. I listened, I watched, I evaluated, and I learned a lot. And then it wasn't just about, my business and what we were doing with my business, but it was my whole life. And I think that's important when everything is changing. Instead of jumping to these rash decisions of, okay, we got to do this now, we got to do that, we got to do this, pull back a little bit. Our friend Misty Lounge, she talks about spring loading. And, that quiet period is not necessarily not doing anything, but it's like pulling back the spring so that whenever you are ready to release, you have way more energy to move forward. And I think a lot of people are missing that point. And what happens is they jump into having to figure things out and all the stress of it, and then they just get burnt out. Mm-hmm. And it's hard.
It is hard. Yeah, we definitely, all of you guys listening, the burnout is real on a good year when we aren't dealing with COVID and all the pandemic. So you have to really protect yourself more so from an emotional and physical standpoint, of course. And I think you make a good point. The pulling back sometimes can look like learning and rediscovering your passion in a new way. And that's what I love about you. You always bring such a aha moment to the classroom teaching experience, or even looking at our population of students with a set of fresh eyes, because we talked about this earlier. The kids need us, right? The dance studio and the classes are a safe space for them. And so I'm going to let you kind of give us some tips or maybe what you're discovering for our listeners.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to education, and especially during summertime, right? Summertime's our time to like do that professional development, kind of reset and all that good stuff. I think some of the things that get overlooked are the soft skills that happen in the classroom, right? So people want to go and get trained in certain techniques, and I think that's 100% necessary and awesome, and yes, do that. But there's a whole side of soft skills that comes along with teaching. And we don't think about those things, those people skills, the ability to maybe like recognize someone who needs to learn differently than the way that you're teaching right now, and so being able to decipher, okay, this kid needs that, I need to say it in this way for that kid, I need to add these visual supports for this kid. That makes a world of a difference in classroom management and being able to see that and just your confidence as well as a teacher to be able to handle that. And I mean, not to mention behavioral challenges, right? Where we all have behavioral challenges. And I would say, at least from what I'm seeing on Facebook and things like that, there's tons of behavioral challenges happening in the online world because you've taken something that's done usually in one place where the kid knows that they need to act a certain way in that place, but then you put it in another location where that kid is used to acting differently in that other location. And so the kids get confused, right? How am I supposed to behave? Wait a minute, I'm at home and usually I act this way at home, but now I'm taking dance class and I act this other way at dance class. So there's a lot of confusion happening with that. So, looking at ways to understand what's going on so that you can better implement processes to help those students and help you, right? Even going down to like physical limitations, right? And I've seen lots of people posting about flexibility or no matter how much I tell this student to straighten their leg or whatever, they're just not getting it, right? Or they can do it once, but then they forget. And the thing is that there's reasons for all of that. And through education of these soft skills, you can figure that out. Like there's
Exactly.
a power as a dance teacher when you have these tools in your toolbox to go into a dance class. And like I said before, it gives you a ton of confidence to know that, okay, I can handle whatever it is. I might not get it right the first time or the 6th time or the 10th time, but at some point, something I try is going to work out, right? But I'm going to keep trying because that kid deserves it. And I think overall it helps with retention, right? Because these kids and the parents know, okay, this might be a difficult situation, but hey, this teacher's totally sticking with it. They're doing what they can. They're handling it in a way that's appropriate, with kindness and collaboration. And I think that goes a long way, especially these days.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're saying is the first place to look if you're in this part of the summer or wherever, if you're listening to this later and you say, what can I do to best maximize my time if I can't get on a plane or if I don't have time to do a full virtual event? You could sit down with your teachers and be like, what if we really focus on our soft skills? Because that is we can certainly mend that up into the stuff of the hard, technique stuff, but soft skills are going to matter whether we're re-upping our dance classes virtually, in person, or both, which I think we're all going to have to be prepared for. The second step is that what we learned the hard way, having been forced into a virtual environment, is that we actually can do some things as dance teachers and studio owners to set our families and our kids up to win. And it sounds like that's the stuff where the teachers will learn, okay, I have a kid on a screen, but they're maybe sensitive to, like you said, what's in the environment at home, and setting the parent up for success that way. So, and then thirdly, back into that more, we need to keep these kids engaged, and the student retention that comes from the teacher having a new set of soft skills will mean the world of difference for these parents who are they're just scared and they're worried about their kid falling behind, or the kid who has maybe a learning difference. They're wondering, how will they ever get back to doing what they love, because the whole world is changed for them. So
yeah, absolutely. And look at it from the studio owner's perspective too. So when issues arise in a lot of these soft skills in the class, the teachers go to the studio owner and say, hey, what do I do? How do I handle this? And that puts a lot of stress on the studio owner. So as a studio owner, if you know that your teachers are trained and prepared, they can handle that on their own without having to keep coming to you. So I think it helps to remove a lot of things off of the teachers, off the studio owners' plates, and put the onus on the teachers. But and you talked about we don't have to fly to go anywhere this year. Think about all the money we were spending on flights and hotels and $20 breakfasts and hotels. That easily can train 1 or 2 people. In a program, in anything,
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I love about you developed the RhythmWorks integrated dance program to not only serve the population of students who are different learners, but it really maps onto, we are all learners. And you said this, we all have some degree of sensitivity around something or learning style. I mean, we all learn differently. So what are some sort of anecdotes or real positive things you see coming out of these teachers you've trained and certified that they're saying, oh, okay, now I see how this works? What are some tangibles?
I will, 100% of the people that have gone through this course, I hear it over and over again. I came here to learn how to work with students who have special needs, but this made me a better teacher for all of my students. And I think it just opens your eyes to those little things that we tend to gloss over that come, they pile up, and then they become explosions. Whereas if you can recognize them in advance and see what you can do as a teacher, then the power's back in your court. The ball's back in your court. So, I see them being more tolerant to behavioral challenges, not in the sense of allowing the behaviors to happen, but tolerant and knowing, okay, this kid is showing this certain behavior. It's not just because this is a bad kid, or they're out to get me. There's something causing that, and they're willing to put on their detective hat to figure it out. They see their role in those soft skills. And, like you said, yeah, I think if I can get the whole world to understand it, it's not people with special needs and people without special needs. It's a spectrum of everything, when you break it down into all kinds of different areas. I don't know if I've talked about the color wheel on any of the events that I've done with you. I love it. So, in life and the way we process and, work through things, we have 7 different senses that we're working with. And then we have cognitive processing, we have physical ability and mobility limitations. And there's probably 10 other ones. Bring in the whole emotional side of it. And if you look at each one of those individual things, so let's talk about cognitive processing. Well, there's a spectrum, right? Sometimes you're really fast, or you may be slower. So if cognitive processing was blue, and on one end of the side, you'd have a really pale blue, and on the other side, you have a really vibrant blue, but you're going to land somewhere in there. And same thing with, proprioceptive input and vestibular input and visual input and, physical limitation. If each one is a different color, you're going to land somewhere on that gradient spectrum of how you process that thing. But think of like a color wheel where you have the little pixel and you move it around, and no matter where you stop, it's like a different color. And there's like 300 million trillion variations of colors. And when you stop, there's a little color code. It says how much of each color is saturated into that thing. So depending on how you process all of your different, sensory processing, cognitive, physical, emotional, behavioral, it's going to determine how much of that color gets put into your individual color. So it's not like blue is better than green or bright blue is better than light blue. It's just, we're all different. So to me, we're a variety of colors existing in this world. And when you see that and you understand that, it doesn't put you on one side or the other. You're more willing to say, okay, what can I do to help this situation? What can I do to help this kid? And have science and knowledge and tools to back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. So you were one time a studio owner, Miss Tricia. So, if what our students are facing right now is there's like both a blessing and a curse here in what's going on. So some of the schools aren't reopening. I mean, we're all at various degrees of schools reopening, and I see a lot of our members trying to come up with ways to bridge that, arts and education gap by offering some during the day programming. I mean, what have been some of the best ways that you've seen your teachers who have gone through the RhythmWorks training integrate this into the studio life? Yeah.
So, I mean, you need to look for the little hidden gems, right? So there's populations of people that are severely underserved. And if you're looking for new programming, I would say look for those people that desperately need something, it might be like the geriatric population, definitely the special needs population, whether it's like group homes or reaching out to a therapist to say, hey, if you're looking for some additional activities for your clients to do, I can come in and do like half-hour dance classes on Zoom or private lessons or, those types of things. That's one of the things with the RhythmWorks program that we do is we train our people to understand the world of therapists and to take what the therapists are doing in their therapy clinic and translate that into dance class. So if a kid is working on riding a bike in their therapy, there's elements to the skill of riding the bike. So things like weight shifting and single leg balancing and bilateral reciprocal coordination and mid-range control and a bunch of other things that also exist in the dance world. So our trained rhythm works teachers are able to talk with the therapist, say, hey, what's Johnny learning? What's he working on? And then do a task analysis on what underlying skills are necessary, and then build a dance class that actually includes those skills and scaffolding to build up to those skills in the dance class, which it's fun, it's motivating, it's different than what they've been doing. So, being able to reach out to those organizations and say, hey, I have some time now, and, I know you're 45 minutes away from me, but we can do a Zoom class for this group home, or, and it doesn't have to be like massively crazy. Like think of like a Zumba class, right? Mm-hmm. Come up with maybe 6 dance steps, teach them the dance steps and do them over and over again. And within a matter of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you've done a class and they're fun. They're getting exercise. It's it's something that they weren't able to do. They can't leave to go anywhere right now. So, I think those are little hidden gems that you can look for. Homeschool students, for sure, reaching out to, I think there's going to be a lot more homeschool students now.
The homeschool pods, yes, they're popping up everywhere. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Exactly. So, offering daytime classes, or maybe they go to one person's house and you do a Zoom class. So you're on Zoom and they're at their house, at somebody's house, and doing it that way. I encourage people to look for those underserved populations. Maybe it's reaching out to an area that has a lower socioeconomic background. Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't have the resources to, have internet or things like that. So maybe it's one-on-one lessons with them at a rate. I know that, like, for example, out here, we work with our regional centers, and our regional centers pay us to go into homes and do one-on-one classes. Yeah. It's free to the people that are taking it, but the regional centers are covering it.
It's true. And there's a lot of, with this evolution of the kids having to learn, not only the general population of students to learn differently on Zoom, but also this hybrid model of some people coming to the studio, some people staying home. I think that the more we get in touch with some of that stuff in our community, things kind of unravel. People will network you in. And I always think, as the studio owners, I think we're being faced with, it used to be, I think the technique is always I'm never going to not say technique's not the bonus of dance, and that it's the most important thing. But somehow we've all kind of pulled back a little bit as a society, and what really matters right now. And that connection, the humanity part of what we do, that emotional, the support. So to your point, Tricia, sometimes it doesn't have to be this over the top, most perfect, highly choreographed dance class. It's getting people moving. It's getting the kids moving. Whether we do the same thing at our studio, we have a teacher who's RhythmWorks trained. She's the one that we would outreach program with. And it's a beautiful thing because she has the listening for what the needs are. And it's just a nice bridge back into those families. We have plenty of families who have one child who's on perhaps a lower cognitive functioning, or has a motor delay and all those things. And they like to network amongst each other. So don't miss the power of your expertise in your community. Like, people look to you as a dance teacher, but more so as someone who has the well-being of all kids in mind. So I just do appreciate that you've come up with a way for teachers to bridge the gap between these underserved populations, as you said.
Absolutely. And it's just, going back to the whole education thing, I think what stops a lot of people is fear. If people don't want to offend anybody, they don't know what to expect, they don't want to hurt anybody, they don't, it's just that there's a big unknown, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of fear that comes along with that, but education stops that fear. And I'm not saying that the first couple times you go out, you're going to be a little bit nervous. I think that happens regardless of who you're working with. But at least it gives you some legs to stand on to go, okay, I think I can do this. and get it going.
Good. Yeah, no, and we want everybody to make sure that they know that when we go back at, there will become a day when hopefully this is all a distant memory and we just all walk right into classrooms as we were. But I think for a while here, we have to be ready for not only the exceptional learners who are on either end of the spectrum to need us, but all kids, when we're walking into an environment, newly taped off floors, stand here, don't stand here, touch this, don't touch that, social distancing, spatial awareness, that your program is more powerful than ever for, like you said, all the teachers. So how does someone who's listening to our awesome podcast here get in touch with, if they are curious about being certified?
Yeah, well, a couple ways. You can go to rhythmworksid.com. That's RHYTHMWORKSID.com, or you can email me at Tricia, TRICIA, at rhythmworksid.com. And you can call me. I like to talk to people.
Yeah, you do. You're fun to talk to.
And I'll give you my phone number.
Yes, wow, you're giving it out.
I am giving it out, so call me, you guys. 310-755-4973. I am happy to sit on the phone with you or Zoom just to kind of talk about what your options are, what your needs are, what the needs of your staff might be, where you might be struggling, and kind of maybe troubleshoot and look for some possible opportunities in your area. Bouncing those things off of other people it's super helpful. Yeah.
Nice. I'm excited because you also have, not only do you have the teacher certification, but you also have an assistant teacher certification,
yes,
correct?
Absolutely.
So how much time do you think it takes for the regular course? Can you give approximate?
Yeah. So the instructor training, we have two options right now. We have the online version, we have an on-demand online version. That one's about 17 hours of video education, and it's a class that was taped and you actually feel like you're in the class, so it's not like you're having to read a ton of stuff. It's very, even though it's online and self-paced, it's interactive a little. And then we are just about to announce our blended courses for the fall. And what the blended courses are, it's a 30-day course, and what we do is each week we release about 4 to 5 hours worth of learning. And then at the end of that learning period, we have a live Q&A session. And those have been great. It's really wonderful to just get people from all over the world together, just talking about what we've learned that week, how that relates to them. It gives them some accountability, because I have to get the work done by the time we get to those Q&A sessions. But it also gives you an opportunity to hear questions from other people, things you may not have thought about. It's really cool. So we'll be announcing that in the next week, I think. So
cool. And then what about the assistant?
The assistant program. So the assistant class is about 6 hours or so. And that course covers sensory integration, behavioral challenges, and a little bit of kinesiology and movement safety. So it doesn't necessarily cover how to actually implement the classes and design and create the classes, but what it does is it puts the assistants on the same page as you, especially when you're dealing with behavioral challenges and maybe things that are a little bit more on the moderate to profound side. Whoever is working and assisting with those students, you want them to know the same language that you're using. You want to be able to, talk on the same level to them, to say, hey, watch out, when this kid does this, I need you to do that, or, and that way that assistant understands what's going on. And I think it makes them more aware of their own power. Even I've had 12-year-olds go through the assistant course. And it's, cool. It's pretty heavy information for a 12-year-old, but gosh, I look back and I'm like, can you imagine if you would have had this information at 12 years old or 14 years old? I think about all the kids that I was a disservice to for not understanding what was going on with them and just chalked it up to, well, this isn't right for you. I mean, so many times in my history of teaching. And I just want to go back and hug those people and say, I'm so sorry. I see it now. I see you. I would have done it so differently back then had I had that knowledge, but you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Well, that is a perfect place for us to wrap this up, because that's the takeaway, right? It's like the best investment you can make is in your own education, because that pays off handsomely over time, and it makes us be new insights. We bring a whole different new enrichment to our school. So thank you for being our special guest today, Tricia. And I hope people get a chance, if they haven't checked it out, rhythmworksid.com, and to connect with you. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, no, I think just, if you're a studio owner, I know money is hard right now. We get that. But investing in your teachers as well, and getting them to be more self-sufficient on the little things that seem to kind of pile up and cause stress on you, in the long run will just make life so much easier for you and retain those students. And I think that's it.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.